Okay. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Ohio, everybody! I'm the Masked Ranger, and this is the story I've been hinting at for quite a while. The story I've been hoping to get to. And it's about time that we got started on it. It's called The Animals of Farthing Wood, The Journey of a Lifetime. For those unaware about The Animals of Farthing Wood, it's the story of, that was written by Colin Dann in the 1970s and released to BBC television in the UK in the 1990s. It focuses on a group of woodland creatures whose home in Farthing Wood is destroyed by human development and are forced to leave their homes in order to find safety in the sanctuary of White Deer Park, a nature reserve named White Deer Park. To make sure that they can all cross the journey together without the predators and preys turning on each other, as nature is ought to do, they introduce the Oath of Mutual Protection. Basically, any animal that's sworn under the oath, it's a promise never to hurt, or attack, or kill each other. They are to protect and look after each other as they make their way to White Deer Park. The journey is not easy, but it's also turns out to be a life-changing one. Along the way, many animals die, most of them horrible deaths, but the survivors are able to keep moving forward. Good friendships are forged between the bigger animals and the smaller animals, and new faces arrive to help them out and even accompany them. It's a fantastic show. It ran for 3 seasons. I have the complete series DVD. If you can, please check it out, either by buying the DVD or by looking it up on YouTube. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. And this story is something that I've been wanting to read about it for quite a while. It's called... The author behind the story is called 14 Sleepyhead 09. So, 14 Sleepyhead 09, let's hope you surprise me. Let's read what he has to say here. My fanfiction for The Animals of Farthing Wood, and the first fanfic I've ever written. I finally got around to submitting the reviewed version here, as follows. There are no significant changes, just a bit of quite possibly failed grammar and spell checking, and a couple of reworded paragraphs, plus new ones. Do enjoy reading, and please leave a review if you can. I'd love to leave a review, but, I'll save reviews for the future. The Animals of Farthing Wood, copyright Colin Dann and BBC. The Journey of a Lifetime. Chapter list! Chapter 1, Love at First Sight. Chapter 2, The Long Farewell. Chapter 3, Bad Beginnings. Chapter 4, A Night on the Town. Chapter 5, 2 Foxes in One Cage. Chapter 6, The Moorland Beyond the Mountains. Chapter 7, It's a Small World After All. You just named it after the Disney ride, didn't you? Interesting. Chapter 8, The Flightless Falcon. Chapter 9, Whiteout. Chapter 10, Lightning Bolt. Chapter 11, On Thin Ice. Chapter 12, The Long Ride Home. Chapter 13, The Endless Urban Maze. Chapter 14, Drunken Antics. Are we gonna have someone be drunk in this? Chapter 15, Blackout. Similar title to Whiteout, but instead of white, it's black. Okay. Chapter 16, Sibling Hatred. Chapter 17, Fight or Flight. Chapter 18, The Lone Red Fox. Chapter 19, The Young Vixen's Secret. Chapter 20, The Son Without a Father. Chapter 21, Journey's End. Chapter 22, One Life for Another. Chapter 23, Duel. It's time to duel! Chapter 24, Plight. Chapter 25, Peace and Reconciliation. Chapter 26, A Promise Made, A Promise Kept. Chapter 27, Epilogue 1, The Fourth Generation, and Chapter 28, Epilogue 2, The Enemy of My Own Enemy. So, that's over 28 chapters, and maybe, hopefully this time it won't take me a full year in order to get this done. But I guess with everything coming up, like me having to move up soon, finding somewhere that has Wi-Fi in Everstone, and just genuinely looking for work, I think I'll take my time with this. If I end up accidentally becoming one of those YouTubers who stops uploading new stories and new chapter readings after about a few years without any explanation, I do apologize. I'll try my best to stay active for as long as I can. That's a promise. Even if it's a promise that I can't keep, I guess it can be one of the best kinds. Chapter 1. Love at First Sight. I'll do most of the reading with my handsome American voice, but for the characters, I'll do their British voices. I'd love to do the whole story in a British voice, but maybe the next Animals of Farthing Wood story I do, I'll do that in the British voice, but for now, here, like I did with the Valentine's Day special, I'll do this as Americano. So, without further ado, let's read this tale. All is well in White Deer Park. It had almost been a year after the rats were defeated and driven out, and most of the Farthing Wood animals are happy living their lives with their mates. They're young or gracefully growing into old age. It had taken time for everything to settle down after the park's last ordeal, but now, finally, there was peace and quiet throughout the land. Due to the calm, Plucky's leadership duties were fairly minimal, if not non-existent. Did I forget to mention that this story takes place after Season 3? And a bit of a spoiler alert, at the end of the series, Fox steps down as leader and gives the role to Plucky. For those of you who haven't seen the entire series, there will be spoilers. I do apologize for that. But for those who haven't seen the series, I hope you all enjoy. He felt a little useless as there was no troubles in the park he needed to sort out. Though that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. He wasn't too bothered, though. It meant he could still have his own free time and enjoy himself. And he still had to beat Dash at a race at least once. Little known to Plucky at the time, his life was about to change forever. It was one of the Fox and the Hare's longest races yet across the park, and to his surprise, Plucky was in the lead. I got you beat this time, Dash! Plucky shouted back. Told you I was faster than ever! Hey! I gave you a head start! Dash joked back, while lagging behind. I'm still fastest! You just wait! The pair whizzed through the wood, Plucky desperately holding on to his lead, and Dash desperately trying to overtake him. The finish line was close now, but Plucky had reveled in his imminent victory a little too early, and didn't notice the outcropping tree root until it was too late. His left front paw got caught right underneath it, and while the front of his body stopped, the back carried on going. He rolled right forward into a ball and carried on rolling before being stopped by another tree. He was left doing a headstand against the tree, his tail dangling between his legs and the tip of it tickling his nose. Plucky quickly fell to his side with a thump, and looked up to witness Dash overtake him, leaving him in her dust. Again. "Sorry, can't stop. Gotta win first," Dash shouted as she ran past, disappearing through the trees. I think the voices that I do for these characters aren't exactly like how the show does it, but I'm trying. Plucky just released a little chuckle and shook his head. It wasn't the first time something like this had caused him to lose. "Damn tree roots," he mumbled to himself. "I swear, every time." He got back up on all four legs, shook the dirt off him, and did a quick trot on the spot, making sure he wasn't injured. Everything was okay, and he turned, proceeding to carry on the race, even though there was no chance of winning. However, before running off, Plucky looked to his right and noticed another fox in the clearing just beyond the trees. It was in that moment he forgot about the race and slowly sneaked to the tree line to see who it was. Plucky reached the edge of the clearing and lied down on the floor, concealing himself stealthily in amongst the assorted shrubs. It was then he realized it was a young red vixen in the clearing, one he had never seen before. She was beautiful. She had scarlet red fur, a white fur underbelly, a white-tipped tail outlined with black from her paws to her knees, white-tipped ears, and a brown head stripe that grew long down the back of her neck. When she turned her head, it also appeared she had 3 small inlined scars at the left of her face. The vixen looked tired and out of breath, and was panting heavily. It was obvious she had been running for a very long time. Plucky just lay there, jaw dropped in awe of the vixen's beauty. He wanted to meet her, but before he could even step out behind the trees, she had turned tail and ran off. Plucky was about to run after her, until Dash reappeared, wondering where Plucky had disappeared to. "Told you I was fastest," she said proudly. "You okay? That was a pretty big trip." She giggled. "Yeah, I'm fine. Nothing hurt," Plucky responded, looking at Dash and back to the now empty glade in the woods. "What are you looking at?" Dash asked curiously. I just saw a vixen in the clearing over there," Plucky said, revealing his distracted thoughts. He didn't keep any secrets from Dash, nor did she keep any secrets from him. "Oh, is someone in love?" Dash joked, then gave a small giggle. "Oh, shush," Plucky replied with a smile. Then he looked back at Dash. "You thirsty?" "I'm parched after that run. Race to the pond?" "You're on," Plucky said, running off in the direction of the pond, Dash quickly catching up after him. While still concentrating on the new race, Plucky couldn't shake the image of the vixen out of his head. He knew he had to see her again. It was then he realized Dash had overtaken him again, and he rushed to catch up with her. It wasn't long before the fox and the hare reached the pond. As per usual, Dash had won again. Almost everyone was there as it was summer, although late summer. Fox lied sleeping away from the bank, with Vixen next to him. Whisper was there too, lying in the shade close to them. They were watching Charmer and Rangers and Friendly and Russet's cubs playing in the shallow waters of the pond, while their parents watched over them. Friendly and Ranger making sure they didn't wander into the deeper water. The two weasel twins, Fido and Cleo, were splash fighting with the cubs, while Weasel and Measly lay further away at the edge of the pond with their feet in the water. Shadow and Hercule were also lounging at the edge of the pond, along with the rabbits and the other hares. Mossy, of course, still riding on Hercule's head. Whistler and Speedy were fishing together in the deeper water. Adder lay asleep, basking in the sun on a rock, while Toad and Spike were chatting with the edible frogs. So I take it that this is a mix of the book series and season 3. For those unaware, the Animals of Farthing Wood also had a book that was never quite adapted into a season, The Siege of White Deer Park. The book's premise was that a mysterious creature invaded the park and killed several white deer. And the animals had to figure out who the creature was and how to stop it. Pardon me. The book introduced cubs of Ranger, Charmer, Friendly, and Russet, named Rusty, Trip, Pace, and... what else is there? I think it was Rusty, Pace, Trip, and the older brother, Plucky, Husky. Yeah. I haven't seen that book, but I have read about it on Wikipedia. On Wikipedia and through the Animals of Farthing Wood Wikia. Hey, when wouldn't I use a wiki? Gotta get my research. Anyways. Hey! Dash and Plucky, mateys, been racing again? Toad noticed and greeted the pair. Yeah, every day, Dash announced. So who won? Whistler asked. I did. I'm still the fastest, boasted Dash. What happened this time? Vixen asked. Tripped over a tree root, Plucky responded. At least it wasn't me this time, Weasel called out before making her trademark laugh. It was so funny, Dash said with a laugh. You're not too bruised, are you? Whisper asked her son, concerned. I'm fine, Mother. You okay, Plucky? You seem rather quiet, Charmer questioned in her usual soothing voice. Yeah, I'm fine. I know that look, Friendly asked suspiciously before continuing. Who's the vixen, Plucky? What? There's no one, Plucky coughed, lifting his head up from drinking, startled at his uncle's powers of deduction. I know who, Dash announced, also lifting her head from taking a drink. Dash! Sorry. So there is someone? Charmer asked further. No, there's no one. Come on, Plucky. Just tell us. Ranger had now piled on. A familiar voice called out, leading everyone to look up at a nearby tree branch as Owl and her mate Hollow had just arrived. If I might interrupt this interrogation... Good hunt, Owl, Vixen said. Very well, thank you, Vixen, Owl responded, almost taking a bow, before she continued. Though it should interest you all to know, we witnessed a group of grey foxes enter the east boundary of the park on our way back. I should really be doing some vocal training, practicing speaking like the characters before doing these types of stories. The only reason I can do the voices is that I have heard them through watching episodes. Grey foxes? Ranger called out with curiosity, while it caught everyone's attention, including Fox, who had pricked his ears up and lifted his head from his afternoon slumber. That is what I just said, Ranger, Al continued. Yes, what? We lingered around for a bit to see what they were up to, but they just stopped in a clearing this side of the boundary fence, Hollow said in addition. I should go see what this is all about, Fox announced in his aging voice. No, Grandfather, I've got this, Plucky intervened, allowing the old fox to keep resting. Very well, Plucky, Fox said, while Plucky began to walk off in the direction of the boundary. Be careful, Whisper called out after her son. Don't worry, I can take care of myself, Plucky called back with reassurance. Friendly, Ranger, go with him just in case, Fox said, turning to his son and son-in-law. The two elder foxes nodded and departed after their nephew. They quickly caught up with Plucky, and the trio proceeded to meet these grey foxes and learn of their intentions. It was the beginning of dusk, and an orange glow engulfed the landscape as the sun came lower in the sky. Trees cast shadows as tall as the trees themselves. It didn't take long for them to get there, but when they did, the clearing was fairly empty. Only a couple of grey foxes lay in the open. Plucky began to stroll into the clearing before Friendly stopped him. Something isn't right here, Friendly quickly interjected. Al said there was a group, so where's the rest of them? They're probably behind the tree line, waiting for intruders like us. Ranger said suspiciously. We're not the intruders, though, Plucky affirmed. And we don't mean them any harm, so they should not harm us. The plucky young fox then walked out from behind the tree line, his uncles following by his side, admiring his bravery, but also concerned about his naivete. Good evening, Plucky called. Good evening, Plucky called out, grabbing the pair of foxes' attention. They stayed lying there until Plucky continued. Just wondering, what is your business here in White Deer Park? Moving close enough to get a good visual of them, they could see the one grey fox was fairly aged, with several small scars on his face, while the other was younger, about Plucky's age from initial inspection, and was the spitting image of the older fox. They were clearly related. It was then, after getting a good look at the strangers, that the trio realized that Ranger's suspicions were correct. They had been surrounded by the rest of the grey troop, along with 3 unfamiliar red foxes working with them. There were at the very least 20 of them altogether. Oh, them grey foxes are smart. You're not in the best situation to be asking us questions, the older fox announced in a deep, controlling voice, standing up. This fox was obviously the leader of the troop. However, we have no hostile intentions, nor mean you any harm, the fox continued, then lifting his head to address his troop. So stand down! The group of foxes then released themselves from their fighting stances and returned to their own activities. If you may pardon me, guys, I need to get myself a drink. If you get the chance, guys, I'd highly recommend mixing orange juice with lemon juice. Takes a bit of effort to mix the sweet and sour juice flavors together, but still delicious. The thing that inspired me was the Jimber arms from Common Rider Games, specifically Jimber Lemon. Jimba Lemon. Haha. Orange lemon combined. Anyway. So I'm assuming you're the one in charge? Plucky questioned. Aye, that I am, the grey fox announced, moving closer. Call me Caesar. Okay, Caesar, hello. I didn't know you came all the way here from Greece and transformed into a fox. Well then, hello, Caesar. I'm I don't need to know your names, Caesar interrupted, causing Plucky to back up and lift his head higher. I told you we have no hostile intentions, and our business here is our own. Now, be on your way. Caesar then turned around and began to walk away from the trio. Let's just go, Ranger muttered. If he isn't going to cooperate, then let him. Plucky didn't listen, though. He walked past around Caesar to face him. I'm not leaving until you tell me why you're here, he said, looking the older fox in the eyes. You are a bold one, aren't you? Caesar replied, in an attempt to threaten Plucky off, but all it did was make him smirk. One day, that'll get you killed. Well, it won't today. You reassured us of that, Plucky stated smugly. The two then shared a deathly stare for a few seconds before one of them spoke. Very well. If you insist on knowing, then I'll tell you. Caesar spoke, turning around and gesturing Plucky to stand next to his uncles. I shouldn't really be turning down the offer of free information. We're looking for a young red vixen that would have passed through here not but a few hours ago. And what exactly do you want with her? Plucky questioned. To hunt her down and rip her throat. No, sorry. To hunt her down and rip her throat out. The younger grey fox, still lying on the grass, called out, before being silenced by Caesar, who had turned his head and gave an angry snarl. I apologize for my son. He still has much to learn about proper leadership. Caesar paused and sighed. But he is right. It is to hunt her down and kill her. She's a deserter. So that means she deserves to die? Plucky questioned further. I take loyalty very seriously. We all do in this troop. And desertion is the ultimate crime. That's barbaric, Friendly interrupted. Just because she runs away, she has to be hunted to her last breath. I wouldn't expect you to understand. That's why I initially refused to tell you. Caesar responded in defense. What does she look like? Plucky said, quickly returning the conversation away from an argument. Oh, you can't miss her. Caesar then continued to provide a description of the hunted vixen. Plucky realized that he was describing the same red vixen he had seen earlier, but he kept silent and continued to listen. But more to the point, have you seen her? Plucky was silent, lost in his thoughts until he realized Caesar was looking for an answer. Fortunately, Ranger answered. No, None of us have seen her, and even if we had, she'll be long gone by now. Ranger then turned to leave. Sorry to have wasted your time, Friendly apologized before turning to leave himself. Plucky soon followed. If you do happen to meet her, Caesar called out to Plucky, who then turned his head, I suggest you kill her anyway. That vixen is nothing but bad luck to anyone. Yeah, I'll be sure to do that. Plucky lied. If he met that vixen, the last thing he would do was kill her. By the way, I never caught your name. It's Plucky. Sorry. It's Plucky, who then turned and followed his uncles out of the clearing. Fitting name. Caesar chuckled to himself. It was sunset now, the land and trees casting even longer and darker shadows, the daylight fading with every passing moment. By the time Plucky had caught up with his uncles, they were already in conversation. To be honest, I don't really care about some vixen I don't know. I've got Charmer and Orvik and our cubs to look after. You're not the only one with a mate and cubs to look after, Ranger. But we still have to consider the oath. Ranger sighed. I suppose you're right, Friendly. But does that still count if it brings the wrath of those grey foxes on us? Well, Friendly then sighed too. That's where it gets complicated. Friendly was about to continue, but he had just realized Plucky walking behind them with his head down, deep in thought. You know, you handled that really well, Friendly praised his nephew. What? Oh, thanks, Plucky said, looking up, and then releasing a long yawn. Sorry, my mind was somewhere else. I think I'm just gonna go to my earth and get an early night. Both Friendly and Ranger had their suspicions that the same vixen the Grey Foxes were after was the same one they had accused Plucky of being love-struck by earlier. However, the young fox had had a long day, and so they decided not to pry into his feelings anymore for the day. They said goodnight to Plucky, and he went off into the night. It was fully dark by the time Plucky reached his own earth, the one he dug with his own 4 paws. He was so confused. He had never felt like this before. There were other vixens in the park he had met, but none had affected him in such a way, and he hadn't really met this one yet. He couldn't get the image of the young red vixen out of his head. So much so, to the point that when he poked his head inside his earth, he could have sworn she was lying in there. He then quickly brought his head back out in disbelief and shook his head. Nah, he muttered to himself, and poked his head back in, and out again. The image of the vixen was still there. I must be going mad, muttering to himself again. Plucky poked his head back in, this time allowing his body to follow through. Carefully and silently, he sneaked into his own earth. The vixen was definitely there, and it looked like she was asleep, her bushy tail curled around her, scarcely making a sound or any movement. But Plucky, still in disbelief, felt the need to poke her shoulder with his front right paw several times. She was definitely there. What we have here is a piece of creative writing. That just reminded me of the first time that Fox had ever met Vixen. Except it was in an hearth far from White Deer Park. Do you have to do that? A sweet and quiet, calming voice spoke out. Sorry. Plucky paused, clearing his throat. You look so quiet, and still I was just making sure you were actually alive. He then chuckled, as did the vixen, who then lifted her head from leaning on her front legs, as Plucky then lied down opposite her. Well, I am very much alive, she said with a smile. That's good. Otherwise I'd probably have to dig another earth, Plucky joked. Why did I say choked? So, this is your earth? Yeah, dug it myself and dragged the moss bedding in too. Comfy, right? Yes, very. I can leave if you want. I probably shouldn't be intruding on such a well-dug home. Well, you can stay if you want. Not like I'm stuck for space. Are you sure? I wouldn't want to impose. Not at all. You're welcome to stay. Wow. I've never met a fox as kind as you before. Well, maybe all the foxes you met before were just jerks, Plucky joked. You're probably right, the vixen joked back, followed by a silence where the pair both stared back and forth at each other. Vixen, take me somewhere we can be alone. I'll be waiting. We're gonna have lots of fun. You'll be my fox and I'll be your vixen. It's a love story. Vixen, just please say yes. So what's your name? Plucky asked. Well, everyone just calls me Jinx, the vixen said, though Plucky could tell she felt a bit awkward. What about you? I'm Plucky, he said rather proudly. I can tell, but what's your name? No, my name is Plucky. Oh, sorry. The pair then both laughed and smiled at each other. It's a pleasure to meet you, Plucky. A pleasure to meet you too, Jinx. The young pair continued to talk throughout the night into the early hours of the next day, until they both agreed it was in both their best interest to get some sleep. Looks like this is the end of the chapter. Well, I think I can safely say that that wasn't too difficult for me. I did manage to get some of the voices down. That new fox, the new grey fox, Caesar, you know, when I gave the son, I just thought it'd be best if I gave his son a Scottish accent, while I gave his father a British accent. If that's okay with everyone. And Jinx, she's quite interesting. So far, Plucky's run into her, and she's sleeping in his earth. They're having the night together. Apparently she did something that's causing the Grey Foxes... Apparently she was a part of the Grey Foxes until something happened that caused her to run away, and they're now trying to kill her. Which means that now Plucky's got to keep her safe, while at the same time introduce her to everyone, and hope that they will be as accepting of her as he is accepting of her at the moment. So, guys, that was the first chapter of 14 Sleepyhead 09's The Journey of a Lifetime. I have to say, I am quite impressed with this story so far. And this is just the first chapter. I love the Animals of Farthing Wood, and I reckon I'll love the story even more, and I hope that, pardon me, everyone who sees this on YouTube, like you guys, fans of Farthing Wood or not, will enjoy it as well. Of course, I will all see you again next time for the next chapter, but until then, I'm the Mask Ranger saying, keep moving forward, and never lose your smile. And one more thing, guys. The most important thing you've got to remember when reading fanfiction based off the Animals of Farthing Wood. Always, and I do mean always, remember the oath. The oath lives on in not just animals, but us human beings, and will carry it on with us forever, until the day we die. Toodaloos, everybody! Have fun, have a great day, take care. Bye-bye!